Who do you stand with? PSG or Inter defense?
This is a very easy question to answer. The Inter Milan defense for me is the best in Europe. And Bastoni has been named the best defender in Serie A, which shows you that they have the ability back there to contain what might be the best player in world football this year.
Hello and welcome everybody to Clean Strike, another edition, and this is a special edition because we have the biggest match of the season on the line. We have the UEFA Champions League Final in Munich, Inter Milan versus Paris Saint-Germain, the two biggest teams of the season. One is the champion of France, the other one just lost the Serie A last week against Napoli. So it's going to be a tremendous game on the line. Here with me is Jibril to analyze this game, and I would like to ask you, Jibril, what do you think? What are your sensations coming up to this game?
Yes, so the biggest game of the year. There's going to be no World Cup final this year. There's not going to be no Euro final. It's a non-tournament year.
Can we count the Club World Cup as another big game coming this year? The Club World Cup final?
Not yet. Not yet, but I get your point. So this is quite literally the biggest football match of the year. There's no other game that matches the prestige of this game because it's a non-tournament year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it unfolds. A final is very rarely a goal fest. It's very rare for a final to be very interesting with a lot of goals, a lot of intrigue, a lot of action, a lot of chances. But it's about the tactical battle. And as they say in France, when you go into a final, you don't go to play it, you go to win it.
Definitely, you said tactical battle. Now that makes me think of the two coaches of the season. Luis Enrique, on the one hand, he has transformed Paris Saint-Germain from a team that was failing year after year in Europe to one that has become now the sensation and one of the teams to beat in Europe, a real rock. And then on the other hand, we have Simone Inzaghi that comes back to a Champions League final 2 years after losing against Man City. I think it can be the game of their careers for these two coaches.
Yes, for Inzaghi more so than Luis Enrique, because Enrique already won the Champions League. So I think this might be the second most important game of his career. For Inzaghi, it is the most important because he lost the final 2 years ago. So he's looking for revenge. He's looking for revenge also for Italy. Italy hasn't won the Champions League since 2010. So Italy needs to win the Champions League. And Italian clubs have lost the last 3 Champions League finals. Juventus lost 2. Inter Milan lost 1. If it becomes 4, that becomes a bit ugly. So you have to win this one for Italy. But yeah, it will be interesting to see that tactical battle. Inzaghi, very underrated as a coach. One thing to note, though, is that in the build-up to the final, there have been rumors that Inzaghi will leave Inter Milan after the final, that he will go to Al Hilal, probably. Now, are those rumors true or not? We will find out very soon. But the fact that he hasn't come out to deny those rumors, I think, gives them credence. So Inter Milan, the build-up to the Champions League final has been very turbulent. They lost, the Serie A in the last day. And there were obviously a lot of controversy about the referees and stuff like that. So they're not really in the best shape to go into this Champions League final. And they could potentially lose everything in a week. They could lose the Serie A and the Champions League in the space of a week, which would be terrible.
Yeah, really, that would be a drama for Inter Milan fans. You were mentioning about Simone Inzaghi era in Inter Milan. You mean that the importance of what would it mean to lose another final and another year of drought for the Italian football in Champions League not winning it? Could it be this the end of an era for Inter Milan, whatever the result it is, either if they win the Champions League or they lose?
Well, end of an era, it's very easy to say that if Inter Milan lose the final because they had their starting lineup in the semi-finals was one of the oldest starting lineups of all time in the Champions League. So they have a very experienced squad. Now, a lot of players might leave after this Champions League Champions League final to seek a better payday somewhere else, a final payday. So end of an era might not be too strong because a lot of these players are still in their prime. But if Inzaghi leaves, end of an era, of course. The guy who brought you the Serie A title, the guy who brought you to do Champions League final, if he leaves, it's an end of an era. Now it's about ending that era the best way possible.
Yeah. Now let's focus on the teams, on the players, on the pound by pound, as it will be like the boxing term, pound by pound. Let's compare the positions. Let's start with the goalkeeper. Who is better? Who do you think you can have a better goalkeeper? Gigi Donnarumma, PSG goalkeeper and former Milan goalkeeper. That's a point. That's a spicy thing for this Champions League. Or Jan Sommer.
Before I answer your question, I have to say something. If this final goes to penalty shootouts, it might be the best penalty shootout of all time because we have two goalkeepers who are excellent at penalty shot stopping. So if it goes to the penalty shootouts, I would be more worried for the people taking the penalties than the actual goalkeepers because they're very good at it. I think that Sommer has been a better goalkeeper throughout the course of his career in terms of being consistent, but I feel like Donnarumma is still more talented than Sommer in terms of reflexes and everything. Sommer has been very consistent. If you follow the Bundesliga, if you follow the Serie A, he rarely makes a mistake. Donnarumma, he has a mistake in him. And that's where it hurts him a little bit in terms of his legacy. He's still very young, obviously, and he can obviously gain experience. But yeah, Sommer for me, if I had to choose a goalkeeper to go into a Champions League final, I would take Sommer.
Yeah,
now, if I had to take a goalkeeper to build for the next 10 years a project, I would take Donnarumma. That's the answer.
I don't know, but I will go for Sommer too. I will go for Jan Sommer too. Even Donnarumma this year has become a completely different goalkeeper. So since from what we saw maybe 3 years ago on the clash against PSG and Real Madrid, I still prefer Jan Sommer because everyone who has followed Bundesliga has seen that he is a very consistent goalkeeper. But now let's talk about the defense. PSG has very top players such as Achraf Hakimi, Marquinhos, that he's very old, but he's still giving tremendous performances. And one of the revelations of this season, one of the sensations, that is William Pacho, also former Bundesliga player in Eintracht Frankfurt. But when we see the defense of Inter Milan, we can see players such as Jan Bisek, that is also very good, very, very competitive player. Alessandro Bastoni, one of the Italian sensations, I will say the main centre back for Italy for the next 6 to 7 years at least, and the hero of last San Siro night against Barcelona, Francesco Acerbi. Who do you stand with? PSG or Inter defense? Which one is your favorite?
This is a very easy question to answer. The Inter Milan defense for me is the best in Europe. PSG, the defense, it has a mistake in it. It can give you goals for free, like we saw against Arsenal, like when Marquinhos gave a goal for Trossard to give to Saka. So honestly, I think like Inter Milan's defense is the most scary defense, and Bastoni has been named the best defender in Serie A, which shows you that they have the ability back there to contain what might be the best player in world football this year, Ousmane Dembele. So, which will be very fascinating to see an unstoppable force against an immovable object. Like it will be like a collision course. May the best win. Yeah, I think it will depend on who can manage those little moments, those little second balls, those little moments of where basically none of the teams can get hold of possession. Those are really the moments where the final plays out, where a team might concede or make a silly mistake.
Definitely. I will say, for me, when it comes to defense, it's like, I'll say 55-45 to Inter Milan. They are favorites on this line, but not so much, because I want to put in value, to put how worth it is, the work of Luis Enrique with William Pacho. We are talking about maybe one of the best centre backs of the season, one of the best centre back with most projection in European football, and also one player that is going to be the reference of his national team in very few time. We are seeing that Ecuador has become now a competitive team in South America, and it's also not only because of the quality of other players such as Moises Caicedo on Chelsea, but also like defenders as William Pacho. That's why I want to put in value to William Pacho, and I will say that for sure Inter is favorite, but not so much as the odds will say. But anyway, let's move to the midfield. To the midfield, because it's also a very interesting fight. Because in PSG we can find three top players. First, João Neves, that is maybe one of the wonder kids in Europe, one of the sensations. Also, Vitinha, that is key on Portuguese national team and has become a differential player in PSG. And my weakness, Fabian Ruiz. We saw last year on the Euro what the quality of player he was, the quality of the amount of talent he had, and that he needed just the best tools to shine. Luis de la Fuente gave them, and he shined. And now Luis Enrique is taking also the profit of this talent, and we are seeing how important and vital was in PSG one player that last year was told for the fans that if he could leave, please. That's a funny thing how the things have flipped from one year to another. And also, but if we see the midfield of Inter Milan, we can see a part of Denzel Dumfries and Di Marco that they could play more as defenders, but also they are like these two left backs with a long way in the pitch. We saw Nicola Varela, Çalhanoğlu, and a veteran like Henrik Mkhitaryan. Really,
two very similar midfields, and I think you said it perfectly. I think you perfectly described how strong those midfields are. Two very similar midfields. Because if you look at Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan, Barella, and then on the other side you have João Neves, Vitinha, and Fabian Ruiz. Those are almost like defensive midfielders who are very good on the ball, all of them. So it's going to be very. For me, it's going to be the most crucial battle, that midfield battle. Those three players facing up against each other is going to be the most crucial battle. And the other battle I want to talk about, I don't think we can count it as midfield, but still, because they play very up in the pitch. Hakimi versus Denzel Dumfries. For me, those two high-scoring defenders running down the flanks, playing on the same flank, so like right side. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting for me as well.
Totally. I'll say that if I need to choose between one midfielder and another, maybe I'll go this time for PSG. I don't know your view.
Yes, I will go for PSG. The only reason why I go for PSG is because Inter Milan, Çalhanoğlu and Mkhitaryan, they're getting old now. They're like, they've been in Europe for like the past 10 years. So PSG, the midfield is more young, more fresh. So that's why I would go for PSG, yes.
Yeah. And then to sum up this lineup pound by pound analysis we are making, let's go to the strikers. On PSG, we have Désiré Doué, Bradley Barcola, and Ousmane Dembélé that we really, if they told us that this Ousmane Dembélé was the same that played in Barcelona 3 years ago, no one would have believed it.
First of all, well done on the presentation, on the pronunciation of the French names. You've done it very well.
I mean, out of jokes and out of the pronunciation things that denying that PSG has now one of the best attacks trio for the next 5 years is a fact, really.
It is scary, and the PSG, the attack is obviously very lethal. Kvaratskhelia and Désiré Doué and Dembélé might be the one starting, and Barcola might be the one coming off the bench. I do think that Inter Milan's attack is better though, and it's going to sound very controversial, but I feel like their attack is a bit more consistent than PSG, because for PSG the problem they have is that Désiré Doué and Barcola, they are still a little bit inconsistent. They need to find that consistency. They're very young. But
Yeah,
for Inter
that's-
Milan, when you have Marcus Thuram, Lautaro Martinez, and then you have someone like Taremi, who's very underrated. We don't talk about him. But when he comes off the bench at the 60th minute or the 70th minute, he does get a job done. So, yeah, for me, I would go for Inter Milan's strike front attack in terms of winning a final. But in terms of, obviously, which attack is more promising for the future, you would have to go for PSG, of course.
Yeah, and also things that we didn't count in PSG. Also, another option that they have is Kvaratskhelia. So,
Yeah.
really, think that
Absolutely.
the options that Luis Enrique can make in attack to compete. So that's why I say I wouldn't know which attack to choose, because both of them, they are very powerful, very strong. I would say here is more 50-50 than in any other line in the pitch. So I would like to make you a couple of more questions just to sum up this Clean Strike edition. First of all, I would like you to say a result for Saturday. What do you think is going to happen?
A 1-0 victory for PSG.
Okay, 1-0 victory. And the last
1-0
one,
victory.
I will say more goals. I will say like 2-1 for Inter Milan.
Yeah, usually finals is 1-0. If you notice, the Europa League final is 1-0. Champions League finals, if you look at the last 10 Champions League finals, usually it's 1-0. So
You are talking about a concrete sandwich as it was the Europa League final.
yeah. By the way, one of the worst Europa League finals of all time, and we expected it. So yeah, I just wanted to slide that in there.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And one last question. Your MVP of the final?
Well, obviously it depends on who wins, but in my opinion, it will be one of the midfielders from PSG, and I'll go for João Neves.
I'll say another midfielder. If PSG wins, I'll say Fabian Ruiz. But if Inter Milan wins, I will say the MVP will go for Lautaro Martinez.
Yeah, for Inter Milan, I think it would be Barella. He's a big game player.
True.
Morella. He's my favorite Inter Milan player, so I think it will be him. And talk about underrated. He might be the most underrated player in Europe, Barella. We don't talk about him, but he's always there.
Totally. Barella quality is one of the hidden gems of European football. But anyway, thank you so much, Jibril, for joining me and here in this edition of Clean Strike ahead of the Champions League final. And for our audience, please like, share, comment. Who do you think is going to win the Champions League? What do you think is going to be the result? Which are your views on the MVP? Which are your favorite players? Please leave us all your comments and please follow us so that we can continue growing. So, thank you so much and see you in the next edition of Clean Strike. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.